You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt McGachy, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
Hey, what is up, good people? I'm so glad to have you here with me today. I really appreciate you tuning in, as always. I don't have too much to go over before we get into this episode, so I'll make this intro nice and short and sweet. But I will use it to say, if you enjoy this podcast and you'd like to keep it around and you'd like to buy some gear for yourself, there's an easy way to do that all in one go. All you have to do is go to tonemob.com/sweetwater for any of your Sweetwater purchases, and a little bit of that is going to come back and help support the show. So if you're looking at a new cable or a mic stand or a microphone or a guitar or a pedal or literally anything that Sweetwater carries, not just the stuff that comes up on that suggested list when you click my link, all you have to do is go to tonemob.com/sweetwater, do all of your browsing and buying after that, and they actually really help the show out a lot. They're very generous with their percentage. They're very nice to me over there. So that is one way to do it, but they don't carry everything. And for that, you can go to Reverb. You can go to tonemob.com/reverb for any of your gear purchasing needs that Sweetwater doesn't carry. And they will also send a little bit my way. And it doesn't cost you anything extra with any of these links. It just helps keep things going over here and keep the show humming along. So that's probably enough for this section of plugging. Let's get into the episode with my man, RJ Ronquillo. We've been needing to do this for a very long time. He demoed the Model 1 back in the day. We talk about all that stuff. He's been killing it on YouTube. He's a monster player, a great dude, and we had a really epic talk. So let's get into it right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar things occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today I have long overdue guest, Mr. RJ Ronquillo. How you doing, buddy?
Hello, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Blake.
Man, this has been so overdue. It's ridiculous.
I know. I finally made it.
It should have happened years ago. I think we've DM'd about it off and on forever, and then we'd see each other at NAMM and be like, we got to do it. And
I know.
Then life, and things.
Yeah.
But I first became aware of you through our mutual buddy Alex, who used to work at Solid Gold Effects.
Mm-hmm.
Him and I were very close, and when I got together with them to do the Model 1, what was that, 4 years ago or something? Yeah. You were one of the first people on the demo list, and that's when I first became aware of your work, and you did a killer demo. And as you've progressed, at least in my viewpoint, you've went from less of a just gear demo YouTuber and more into a informational, personality, for lack of a better term, on top of doing the really amazing demos that you do. And I wanted to talk about that whole journey and how you got started playing guitar, the whole 9 yards. Let's start from the beginning.
Let's do it.
So, when did you first start playing?
I can't remember. It's been so long. No, I feel like I started noodling around with the guitar when I was 9 years old. And if I remember correctly, my dad, growing up, my dad was the instrumentalist. He was just, a hobbyist, but he had piano, he had guitar, he had kind of drums and saxophone all around the house. So I was surrounded by instruments. And I started playing piano when I was 6, and I kind of got bored of it as I got older. and guitar was the next instrument really that piqued my interest, and a lot of it had to do with just the times. This was like the mid 80s, MTV, the radio. So guitar was definitely on the forefront, and I saw it all the time. And, we had a couple laying around the house. So I kind of just noodled around and figured out not chords, but just kind of like riffs and all that stuff. And I think my dad bought me like a student acoustic guitar from like Kmart or something. And it came with like a little crappy booklet that taught you like campfire chords. And I like proceeded to learn all of those in the day. And then I think at some point when I was 9 or 10, I asked to take real guitar lessons. So it was probably around 9 or 10. I always say that like it was the movie Back to the Future that made me really want to play guitar.
Mm-hmm.
So it was around that time, I think, 80, 85-ish, where I begged to start taking guitar lessons. So I took guitar lessons at a local music store, kind of learned the basics, and I enjoyed it. And here I am.
You've done so many things professionally. You have played with so many people in so many different genres. I mean, do you remember when your first like quote unquote professional gig was?
Yeah, I feel like my first big kind of touring gig, where we had a tour bus and my meals and hotels were paid for, was with this reggae band called Inner Circle. Now, some people don't know the name Inner Circle, but they've definitely heard their songs. They did the song Bad Boys, which is the theme song to Cops.
Yep. Okay.
And
yep.
They had another song called Sweat, which was like a la 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 long, a la, they were like an early 90s reggae band. They did pretty well. So at the time, I should preface this saying that I went to music school at the University of Miami in Miami, Florida. So after graduation, I stuck around town just to work. And before this, I was just doing like local cover band gigs and wedding band things and corporate events or whatnot, just to just so I could play guitar and make a little bit of money. But this gig came along. I was actually playing at I was part of the Miami Heat, which is the basketball team in Miami. Every Friday night, me and this band would play as kind of the entertainment, during the game, and then after the game, there would be like an after party at one of the clubs inside of the arena. So we would play there every Friday, and one night, the drummer for Inner Circle, who was friends with our keyboard player, came in just to check out and hang out and meet everybody. And I guess at the time they were looking for a touring guitarist, and he saw me and asked me if I wanted to audition, which really was, can you want to come over here and come over to the studio and rehearse? And so I said, yeah. And that's kind of how it happened. He just saw me playing at, covers at this little gig, and he asked me to come over to the studio to, he says audition, but it was really like, I guess I had the gig at the time because they were really desperate. So just, a quick rehearsal just to make sure I wasn't crazy or crappy at playing reggae. And that was my first touring gig. And we started playing gigs around Florida at first. And then that summer, I believe we went on like an East Coast bus tour for, I think it was like a month and a half. So that was my first exposure to a real kind of touring experience. And then from there, I think it's hard to say how it all snowballed after that, but through them, I got a bunch of different recording sessions because, like I said, I went to their studio to rehearse, and they still own to this day a really nice recording studio in North Miami called Circle House Studios. Mm-hmm. So after that tour, I began to do more session work, and then I got some random calls to do some other touring gigs with some Latin artists and local stuff. So I feel like I was playing less less and less local cover band and wedding band stuff, and more of just like touring and recording session work. This was probably around 2003, 2004-ish, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of all kind of fell into place. I would meet new people. I would meet people that were producers or musical directors for other acts. And that's how I kind of started getting a name in the scene as being a touring guy.
And when did you decide, hey, there's this YouTube thing? I wonder what that's about.
Oh, long after. I think, so I started I signed up for YouTube in 2006, and I didn't really do anything. It was just more of a place to house my videos, personal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like somewhere around 2009, 2010, no, actually probably 2010, 2011, I should say, is when I started doing really rough gear demos. It was basically for Eastwood guitars. And the story is I wanted a discount on one of their guitars, which I still have. It's the Eastwood Tuxedo. And the agreement was, at the time I wasn't really touring. I still had, my resume, but I wasn't actively touring. So it didn't really make sense to be like, hey, I'm a touring artist and can I get an artist discount? So I said, hey, why don't I do a YouTube gear demo? Because it was kind of a new thing back then, like 2010-ish.
Definitely.
And I'll do a gear demo, help promote the brand or whatever. And you can, and they'll give me a discount on the guitar. So that's what I did. And it did fairly well. It did okay at the time. And then they sent me another one. I forget the name of the model, but that did pretty well as, also. So those were just like 2 videos I did. And gradually they would send me a guitar here and there, and I would demo it. I think they sent me like a couple airlines and a couple, like a 12 string. And it just kind of grew from there. But that was just something at the time that I was thinking was, this is something I like to do on the side. I'm still a touring guy. I'm still a gigging guy. That's my main thing. That's where I'm making most of my money. Because I'm trying to, I think at the time, I don't even think I was charging for these videos. It was just kind of like, yeah, I'll do it when I have time. No problem. And if I want to buy the guitar, just give me a discount or something. So I wasn't really doing YouTube gear demos for pay way back then. And it wasn't until, eventually I started charging, but it was still something I did on the side because I was still touring. I had moved to LA, I had moved to Chicago, and then now I'm living in Nashville, and I was still, being a gigging musician. And then at some point, I think in 2018 is when I kind of decided that I wanted to do YouTube full time. I was getting tired of touring and traveling. It was kind of wrecking havoc on my health as far as, not getting a lot of rest. And it was just getting harder as I got older. I think I had just turned 40 too. But I think eventually I cut the cord with just my touring gigs and made a clean break and say, look, I want to take a chance. Because really it was, a big chance to drop, having a touring gig where I was, guaranteed X amount of money every year. Well, except for 2020, but we don't have to talk about that.
I was going to say, weirdly, that was a great move with 2020.
It was a great call looking back. Yeah, definitely, for sure. End of 2018 was my last full year of touring. And 2019 is when I started doing YouTube full time. But when I made the decision, I was still unsure of moving, pivoting to the whole YouTube thing. So I made sure that I had an inkling that I was going to do okay doing the YouTube thing, because I was still scared. It's a scary thing to switch industries.
Oh yeah,
so to speak.
Definitely.
So, but I'm glad I did it because it's worked out so far. Knock on wood.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I had sort of a similar experience. I mean, you at least stayed musical. I switched from petroleum to this.
Wow.
So it was kind of a jarring
That's
jarring
quite
thing.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was the transition. I had to make sure, like you said, I had to make sure that I had to prove that it was going to work before I have ever felt comfortable making that transition. And one thing I've told other people, whether they're trying to start a company or whether they were trying to do something more creative like this or YouTube or whatever, like, do it for a good long while first on the side.
Mm-hmm.
You know, learn all your, not all your mistakes, but get some of those early mistakes out of the way, because you're going to make mistakes. There's no avoiding that. And get them out of the way while you still have another source of income. So you can cushion that blow a little bit. Get things, sort of figured out. I mean, you're always learning, but get things sort of figured out before you jump in with both feet. Now, some people need that pressure in order to succeed. They just won't do it unless they hold both feet to the fire. But like for me, it lowered my stress significantly to already have a few years under my belt of like, okay, this is sort of predictable now. Mm-hmm. I can kind of count on it to a degree, and now we can go. Otherwise, it would have been terrifying.
I definitely was testing the waters for at least a year or two. I mean, I think even in 2017, I was thinking about leaving touring. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'm pretty sure 2017 is when I had the idea to stop touring, but I was too scared, so I continued touring for the next 2 years. But I knew I had in the back of my head, I was making a plan to officially quit at some point. I just needed to make sure that the YouTube stuff was in place safely enough for me to just totally switch over.
Right. Yeah, it's a weird thing trying to go independent, when you're used to just, for lack of a better term, getting a check from somebody else.
Yeah. Yes.
You really got to shift the mindset.
Definitely. I like it. I like being my own boss way more.
I do too. There's stressful points to it, of course, but I went from, a place where I had to put my vacation time a year in advance, mm-hmm. And even then you might get called in, and, just because it says you're going to be there for 8 hours, you might actually be there for 14. You don't really know, like right. Really unpredictable like that. For everybody, not just for me. It was that way for everyone that worked there. And I really found that stressed me out more than anything. When people would be like, hey, are you going to be able to come to your sister's birthday? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, totally. That's the worst.
Just to be able to be like, yes, I will make that happen, barring anything insane. Like that control has been, I mean, that's lowered my stress significantly. So I definitely can relate.
Nice.
So I usually wait a little bit, but since we are kind of talking about this stuff already, I told the Facebook group that you were going to be coming on the show.
Cool.
And I've got a question specifically around what we're talking about from Eric Marrow, who's also a YouTube guy.
Hey, I know Eric.
Yeah, he's great. What tips does RJ have to growing a music/gear-based YouTube channel today?
Wow, that's always a hard question.
Mm-hmm.
But when we had to start quarantining last year, I had a lot of friends that were touring musicians that were asking me about starting, a YouTube channel and getting started with that stuff. And as far as there's a couple of things I can suggest, and some of it's gear related. For me, if you're a musician that wants to do stuff on YouTube, obviously your audio has to be really good. I think, since people are looking at you for whether it's audio related or music stuff or anything like that, I think the audio is extremely important. And while you can get away with just having, an iPhone and just recording stuff like that, I think if you were to start investing in gear to really level up your game on YouTube, I think the first thing I would look at is making sure you're getting, as good of audio as you can into your recording device or whatever. So whether that means, miking your amp or going direct into your computer or something, or, just having a good quality mic for your voice, I think more than that, more than buying, a fancy Sony camera or, fancy aperture lights and all that stuff, I think first concentrate on your audio. Because at least for me, when I'm watching videos, if it's just like a really bad audio situation, or like they're just using the camera mic in a room with lots of echo and all that stuff, that's like a big turnoff to me to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So as someone that enjoys good quality audio, I appreciate when people spend the time to get their audio stuff situated. And as far as like, starting the whole YouTube venture, I usually tell people that don't be so stressed out about views and subscribers, and to just be yourself and show your own personality, because there's an audience for everybody on YouTube. Like literally you could make a video about the dumbest stuff and people would watch it. And that's, I mean, there's tons of evidence out there. Like I watch videos that have like 5 million views about the dumbest stuff. I'm like, how are they getting these views? I'm like, well, there's people in the world that will watch anything. So, stressing out about, your subject or whatever you're doing or whatever, or how you're talking, it doesn't really matter. Like, don't stress out too much about it. Just be yourself and show your personality. So, what else? What else can I say? What was the question again? What was the original question?
Asking about growing a music or gear-based YouTube channel.
Yes. For me, like, I don't really even look at the analytics every day to my videos, because I'm not really sure how that can really help me. As far as like, oh, this video didn't do so well, so I'm going to change the thumbnail or change the title or do another video just like it. Like, I don't understand a lot of the YouTube analytics and strategies. I just for the most part make videos that I like to make. Whether people watch them a lot or not, it's weird. Sometimes I'll make a video that I think people won't enjoy, but whatever, I enjoyed making it, and that gets the most views. I'm like, okay, that's weird. I didn't think anyone would be into this video, but it's doing really well. And then on the other hand, like, I'll make a video that I think is going to do great and only gets like a couple thousand views or something. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I can't. I've learned that I can't really control the situation, or I just haven't learned how to control the situation, and I'm cool with that. I just go with the flow, do videos that I enjoy doing, because that's really why I'm on YouTube, is because I enjoy, the process. I enjoy planning videos, creating the videos, filming, editing, all that stuff. If I start doing videos that I don't want to do, then it just seems like work. And
right.
I'm in the wrong business.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, because I am not nearly as experienced with the platform as you are, but I've been, well, we talked about it off the air, but I made a pretty good push on it last year, and it was definitely working. It was like, oh, look, the more I do, the more people pay attention. Weird how that works, right? Yeah. And what I found too is like that predictability was really difficult. Certain things I don't really watch unboxing videos, because I'm like, I'll find out what it is eventually if I really care that much. I'm not going to sit here for 15 minutes and watch you take it out of the box. It's not really what I like. But I got a guitar in for a giveaway, and I genuinely didn't know what it was. I knew it was a Squire. That's all I knew. I didn't know what Squire it was going to be. And so I'm like, well, I guess this is an opportunity to do an unboxing video. And of course it was like one of the best performing ones that I did. Which I'm like, this took me like an hour to make. From like setting up to uploading, and like sometimes these videos take half the day, and that's like, well, nobody watched that.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of weird like that. And unboxing videos are interesting because I'm kind of the same way. Like, I'll watch an unboxing video, but I'm going to fast forward to when you're actually playing out the guitar or whatever.
Right.
Just so I'm like, okay, that's what it is. But the fact is, like, it creates, tension, and people want to click on the video to see what it is. So, not that it's clickbaity, but it kind of works. It's psychology. Mm-hmm. Where like, ooh, what is this? You're going to have to click on the video to find out. So you're getting views, even if people are fast forwarding. So it's just, little strategies about YouTube. And, one of the biggest things that YouTubers will always tell you is consistency is always going to be key. Mm-hmm. Whether that's, once a week, twice a week, once a month. That's just key to really just getting subscribers, because you want to let people know that they can expect a new video, every week, every 2 weeks or whatever. So that'll get them to subscribe to make sure that they know, when you're going to have another video. Whereas if you're just kind of posting a video every month, or you post, 3 days in a row and then nothing for another 2 months, it's not going to attract people to subscribe and kind of stay on your channel.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with podcasting. It's just that podcasting is a little bit less algorithm driven than YouTube. But if you like, the biggest mistake, and I've said this before on the show, but the biggest mistake I ever made was early on I think in 2015 or 2016, I was trying to do this. I was working with different clients with marketing stuff, and I was still working at the terminal. So I basically had like 3 jobs, and, was trying to be a husband and all that stuff too. So, it was really challenging, and, something had to give. And unfortunately, it was usually the podcast, because it wasn't providing any immediate, income at the time. And so that's what had to slip. And I should have like made an episode and been like, hey, everybody, things are really insane right now. I'm not quitting, but I'm going to be pretty spotty for a while. Instead, what I did is I just was like, oh, I'll get to it next week. I'll get to it next week. And then I couldn't get something scheduled or whatever. And so it would, like, next week turned into like 3 months. Yeah. And I talked to some listeners at NAMM, a year or so after that. And they're like, yeah, we thought you quit. We just thought you just got burned out and we're done. And who knows how many of those people never came back. They got other things to do. They have lives. They're not going to be sitting around with bated breath waiting for me. Like, they got things to do. So consistency is really important, but also just keeping those lines of communication open with your people if you do have to drop is important too, so that they know. Yeah,
it's and a lot of it is being on social media and just making sure that people know that you're still around and you're still active, even if it's just like, posting a photo on Instagram once in a while, or tweeting something. Just, a lot of times, I'll hear nothing from people that I follow for like years, and then suddenly they'll pop up and say, yeah, I'm still here. I'm like, okay, well, you should have let us know. Just kind of like making sure that the people that are following you are, you're still alive, and they stay with you and continue to follow.
Yeah, I think that's really important too, because maybe you can't sit down, for whatever life situation is being handed to you at the time, you can't sit down and take half a day and make a YouTube video, but like, maybe you can do an Instagram post. Maybe you can, on whatever platforms you happen to be engaged on. You know, some of that stuff doesn't take that long, and at least lets people know that you're alive. And
Oh yeah.
I say that from a company perspective too. You know, Facebook pages for businesses are not that great generally as far as getting eyeballs on them. But what if you notice, like if you're on Facebook at all, or even if you're not, if you're like wondering what's going on with like a local restaurant and you go to their Facebook page and like, oh, they haven't posted anything in like 9 months. They might be doing perfectly well and busy, but in your head, you're kind of like, are they still open?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just the weird world we live in these days. It's all digitally driven, whether we like it or not.
Yeah,
basically,
it rules the world.
It does. It does indeed. Well, let's get back into some of these other Facebook group questions. Let's see what we have here. Chris Reynolds, he wants to know, what is your favorite Eastwood guitar you've ever demoed?
Ooh, my favorite. That's a hard question. I mean, I'm gonna go say like the first one I ever got, which was the copper airline tuxedo, which is kind of like a K Barney Kessel type of guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like semi hollow, but there's no F holes. But that's one that, like, to this day, you know, it's not like any other guitar that I have, and it's not that expensive. But it's just sounds and it feels great. The pickups, I don't know what kind of pickups they are, but they sound great. And it's the oldest guitar from Eastwood that I have and I still own. Even though I don't play it as much. In fact, I can't remember the last time I ever used it in a video, but it's one of those guitars that is just a lot different than any other guitar that I own.
It looks awesome. Every time I see it, and like it kind of makes me smile. It's just big, and I don't know. I just love it.
It's interesting. And I used it when I first got it. I used to use it on gigs, like jazz gigs and blues gigs, and it's just got a vibe to it. And you know, a couple years back, we did like a custom tuxedo, like RJ model, like a limited run, and I kind of modeled it after the tuxedo. It's basically like a double cutaway tuxedo, kind of a bigger body, but still P90s and you know, same neck, same specs, just just a different body.
Mm-hmm.
And
very nice.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
All right, we got another one here. Rick Calhoun. He says one of his favorite channels, so that's
nice.
Cool.
Thank you, Rick.
He says, ask him what music inspires him these days, and if he could be the lead guitar player for any artist, who would it be?
Man, these days, what am I listening to? Or what inspires me? Anything can really inspire me. But I don't know. It's like lately I've been going through this Dave Grissom kick, and he's a player that, you know, I've enjoyed since the 90s at least. But I started listening to not only his latest trio record, but like some of the older John Cougar Mellencamp stuff and Joey Ellie stuff. And he's just one of those players that I don't realize it, but I do model part of my style off of his subconsciously. Because when I listen back to his playing, I'm like, I kind of do a lick like that. I'm like, oh, that's where I must have gotten it from. But like literally the past couple of weeks, I've been listening to a lot of his stuff. But you know, I listen to like 90s hip hop and gent music here and there, and a little bit of everything. So it changes daily. In fact, let's pull up my Spotify.
There you go.
History to see what I've been listening to.
It's always a good move.
I got some Genuine.
Yeah, yeah.
I got a lot of 80s R&B, like Morris Day, Cameo, Shaka Khan. And then I was saying John Cougar Mellencamp. And And if you haven't seen on some of my recent videos, I got into this style of music called AOR, melodic rock. So I've been listening to like kind of deep cut 80s and 90s melodic rock, like some Starship, some Europe, some of these albums that I never listened to back in the day. Because it's funny. I'm fascinated by this style of music because I feel like it was a style that was really gaining momentum late 80s into the early 90s, which we all know was kind of the time when it was going from hard rock to grunge. So I feel like this style of music was getting way lost in the background, but people were still producing it, way into like 92, 93 or something. So it's basically like almost like what hair metal turned into in the 90s, even though we were already listening to, Seattle grunge and Green Day and all that stuff. So it's kind of like the music that the time forgot. And I'm rediscovering it now. And like, whoa, I never even heard about this Starship album or this, third or fourth Europe album.
Right. Everybody knows Final Countdown, and that's pretty much it. So
yeah, that's like the only album, like the first three Europe albums were the only ones that I really knew about. But obviously they were making albums after that. I just, wasn't interested at the time. And now I'm like, oh, this is actually pretty cool.
It seems like hair metal's kind of natural progression. I'm not super familiar with it outside of, Europe basically, but it seems like, it started to slant like less, not that hair metal is overly aggressive the way like thrash is or something, but it started to slant like less aggressive, less downfall of Western civilization and more like fun and anthemic and like, party, not necessarily party, but like theatrical, like almost like hair metal went Broadway or something.
Yeah, I could see that. I think, it depends on the band. Some bands kind of try to go a little grungier. I remember Kiss, I think it was like 92, they came out with a record called Revenge. And, some of their music on there were a little bit heavier and quote unquote grungier just to, keep up with the times, even though it was still Kiss, they were still cheesy songs. But it's funny how, it went from, rock and roll all night and party every day to like some really dark sounding music.
Yeah, it's weird to think about like Pantera was a glam band.
Oh yeah.
At one point.
I know. Could you imagine?
I haven't heard any of that stuff. I don't really know what it sounds like, but if you go pull up pictures of Dimebag, it's like, what in the world?
Oh yeah. Is he wearing makeup?
It's very jarring to go from the Pantera that we all know to like, wait, they were a glam band?
Yeah. I think they just had to pivot until they found their niche.
Yeah. I think that was before Phil joined the band though, which makes some sense.
So it was just the brothers, yeah.
Yeah. But it's still kind of funny to go dig up those old pictures and be like, would you
with
look at
spandex and hairspray and
there was a lot that went into that look. There was a lot of time put into the hair metal days. It seemed like a lot more effort than I could ever put out on it at anything, really.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of glad that it's partially over, just because it's too much work. Although I applaud them for doing it.
It sure gave us a lot to talk about and a lot to look at and a lot to
yes,
I don't know, absorb.
Exactly.
Oh man, it's music is such a funny thing because I've talked about this so many times recently, but like I really pigeonholed myself when I was a teenager. I was like, I listen to this and this, and everything else is for morons. And it was like, why did I do that? It doesn't even make any sense, It's
I think
very
it's part of being a teenager or a young person, is just being like, this is what I think is cool, and that's it. That's all that matters. Mm-hmm. So I think the more mature you get, the older you get, then you're more open to, different things, different styles of music. For me, listening to jazz I don't even know how that happened. I was probably like 13, and I think I got it in my head that like, oh, if I learn how to play jazz, I'll automatically be just a better musician or a better guitar player. And that's kind of like what a lot of people think. But, I forced myself to listen to jazz, and eventually I started to understand it and enjoy it. So, some people will force themselves to listen to jazz and still hate it because, they're not in, something that they're not into. But I think a big part of listening to jazz is understanding it. And, that went hand in hand with my education and just taking jazz guitar lessons and all that stuff. So I think that's probably the only reason why I appreciate jazz, is because I learned what the hell was going on.
Do you think your music school experience like helped inform some of that because you could appreciate what was going on a little more?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were literally forced to take classes called jazz appreciation, music appreciation and stuff. So it was kind of forced on us, but I seriously still enjoy it to this day, listening to it, because it does make my brain work a little bit differently when I listen to jazz. So
who are some of your jazz pillars, I guess, for lack of a better term?
Well, as far as guitar players go, I think Wes Montgomery was big.
Definitely.
Jim Hall. What did I listen to way back then? The usuals like Pat Metheny and Mike Stern and John Scofield. But I really like the classic jazz guys, like old George Benson, Tal Farlow, Kenny Burrell, even like, Charlie Christian and Django stuff. I, was more into that than I was into, Metheny and Mike Stern and all the newer guys. But part of jazz is also getting inspiration from the other instruments as well. So, Miles Davis and Bill Evans and, Coltrane and all those guys. That's one thing I learned was, when I was learning guitar and learning how to play music, I was only listening to guitar players because I want to be a better guitarist and a better musician. So I'll only listen to my instrument. But, listening to jazz, they kind of tell you have to listen to other instrumentalists too and gain inspirations. And a lot of, John Scofield will tell you a lot of his playing is supposed to sound like a horn, like a saxophone player. So it kind of got me into, out of the box of just listening to guitar music and listening to, non-guitar music, whether it's, a Miles Davis record or Bill Evans piano records, which is nothing like guitar, but, you can kind of dissect it and pull stuff that you can translate to the guitar if you go deep enough. So that's a benefit of listening to jazz and other styles of music.
Yeah, I've had this really weird experience while I've been working on this record this year where like I primarily listen to guitar-based music. Not exclusively, but almost exclusively. And then the sounds I'm making on this, like at times they barely sound like guitar, like at all. But then on this last track, I had some Rhodes pieces, and the way I ran them through effects and things, the Rhodes part sounded more like guitar than the guitar part. It was like, what am I doing? I don't even
You're flipping it.
I'm making such weird stuff.
That's
when
awesome,
I'm left to my own devices. All sounds like horror movie soundtracks, but
I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, I'll send you a couple tracks. It's strange to say the least. It's weird, but
cool.
My wife told me like maybe that's just what you do. It doesn't sound like anything that I listen to.
Yeah,
that's the weird part. That's the part I've had a hard time accepting. But once I did accept it, it's like, okay, well, let's just see what happens. Like, it's definitely not for everybody. it's barely for me.
Well, it's interesting that you say that it doesn't sound like anything that you were influenced by or that you listened to. But it's funny, I tell people you just listen to music and it kind of works itself through your brain and eventually comes out through your hands, and that's what you spit out. So everyone's different. So it's interesting to hear how people digest music and influences and then kind of translate it into their own compositions and playing.
100%. Because I'll listen to things sometimes that artists that I really enjoy are like, oh, I was really influenced by this person. You have to check them out. And I'll go back and listen to them. Like, you were? Like, okay, well, that's cool that you were, but I don't hear it. Sometimes you can pick it up.
Right.
Sometimes it's more obvious, but sometimes it's super not. And that's what makes it all so fun. We're all dealing with the same, 12 notes or whatever, and unlimited combinations thereof, which is, we even spend hours and hours talking about how to manipulate those 12 notes with these weird stomp boxes and,
I know. I'm glad that we're limited to just those notes. That's enough to last a lifetime.
It's enough to last probably all of human civilization. Mm-hmm. I think we're expanding on that all the time in so many different ways. But yeah, man, it's fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is one of the craziest or like most memorable experiences that you've had in your career? Like something that really stands out to you when you think about it?
A lot. There's a couple. I'm trying to think of the funny ones. I do remember. So one of the bigger tours that I did was with Ricky Martin, and this was in 2007.
Wow.
And one of the that whole tour was memorable, but one of the particular gigs that was the most memorable to me on that tour was playing in Argentina. We played at River Plate, which is the big soccer stadium in Buenos Aires, and it's huge. I think to this day, that's probably the biggest venue I've ever played as a headliner. And I remember it was 40 degrees. So it was open air. It was outside basically. And it was cold and it was rainy and it was like 40 degrees. And my wardrobe for the tour was basically shirtless. I mean, I had, a shirt, but it was like, basically like see-through and didn't really button up. I don't even think it had buttons. So it was just kind of like hanging over my upper body.
That sounds about right.
Definitely not. Exactly. Definitely not keeping me warm for this 40-degree gig. And I kind of begged the wardrobe if I could at least just put on like a long sleeve just for this one show, because it's, it's freezing, it's windy, it's rainy. And they said nope. Like, great.
Oh, wow.
So I'm just like dying backstage. I think we even had to delay the show because of rain and wind, because it was getting windy enough to where they were afraid that the lights and the speakers would be a problem. So we delayed it, I remember, and being outside backstage hoping that we'd cancel the show, but it went on. And it's funny, as soon as I got up on stage, I didn't feel cold anymore. And it wasn't because the lights were warming me up or anything. It was just like that, the energy and just being all hyped up. I didn't really notice being cold or anything. So it's weird how, that crowd energy and just the excitement can transport you into another dimension, or make you forget about things. But yeah, that was definitely one of the memorable gigs. I remember just taking a guitar solo. I think it was like in the rain, and I was out on this long kind of catwalk, and it was raining and it was freezing, but I was like, oh, this is awesome. This this is the biggest stadium ever and I'm having fun, so whatever. So it's one of those things that just makes you forget all the bad stuff.
Yeah, you go through a lot of pain and a lot of frustration and irritation and gas station tacos to be able to do these things, right?
Yeah.
And it's those moments that make it all worthwhile.
Most definitely. And I've had, every touring gig is not the same. It's not like that, but you have to remember that, you're out there playing music for a living, and there's other people that would kill to do what you're doing, and you should just be, happy and humble and blessed, and that's something that, as a touring musician, like towards the end, I definitely felt like I'm not enjoying this anymore. So instead of just like staying out on the road and complaining, the best thing to do is just get the hell out of there and do something different. So I have a lot of friends that are, that are still touring, but all they do is complain about traveling and, my hotel room wasn't ready or all this stuff. I'm like, man, don't worry about it, dude, because you're playing music and it's better than, an office job or whatever.
That's the thing is when I talk about doing any sort of creative endeavor, whether it's music or painting or videos or whatever you're doing, I just think about, I'm like, oh man, this is a lot of work. It's a lot of work to promote. It's a lot of work to stay relevant and stay in front of people. It's a lot of work to create the thing in the first place. It's a lot of work. And then I think about it, and I think about the old jobs I used to have. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is not work. Hanging upside down in the middle of an excavator covered in grease, bending my arm in a way that it shouldn't be bent to try to tighten a hose. That was work. Like eating dirt and, stripping roofs and all that. That was work. That's what people are really doing out there right now. Like it really puts it into perspective of like, okay, yeah, this is work and it's valuable and it's a thing that people enjoy, but you could be doing that again.
Exactly.
and I will if I have to. I'm going to pay the bills. So if I have to do that stuff, I'll do it. But yeah, I sure would rather do this by a long shot.
Yeah, I think just the important part is to enjoy what you're doing, or, figure out how to enjoy what you're doing. Because that's all about longevity. That'll keep you in the game and, keep you less stressed.
But like you said, there are people that would kill to be able to do that.
Yeah.
All over the world.
That was one thing I noticed on some of my tours in the past is like the veterans that were in the band or whatever were the ones that were, I don't want to say complaining, but they were complaining, and I was kind of like the newbie. I'm like, this is great. We're going all over the world and this is amazing. I'm enjoying myself. And to see like the older guys, to see my future basically saying, this is not as great as it used to be or whatever. I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't understand that. And I'm like, can't you just see that this is still cool?
Right.
But I think, it really depends on the person. Some people love it and enjoy it. And some people just see it as a job, 9 to 5 type of thing. And this is something that they're doing for money, even though they don't necessarily enjoy it. So it really depends on the person.
Definitely. Well, we're getting down to the last little bit here, and I've got a few classic questions to dig into before we wrap this thing up. But before we do that, this is your time to shine. You can say whatever you want to say. You can give a shout out to your cousin. You can talk about your favorite tacos. I don't know, whatever you want to talk about. This is your chance. So go for it.
I don't have an album to promote. I don't have any products to promote, although I do have some slide courses on Udemy. I have one that's how to play slide guitar and one that's 30 essential slide licks. I think they might be the top slide guitar courses on Udemy right now. But anyways, that's really my only lesson products I can promote. But yeah, every Saturday I do my YouTube live stream, Saturday morning coffee Q&A. And every weekend it's a little bit different. Sometimes I show off new gear. Sometimes I talk about what's in the music news, like, new gear that's coming out, new guitars. Sometimes I have a guest. I know in the past I've had a couple guests live. So it's always a fun time. And I say that it's kind of like the adult guitar player's version of Saturday morning cartoons, depending on what part of the world you're living in. I mean, sometimes we have guests from Australia, so it's like 3 a.m. where they are, but I call it Saturday morning coffee Q&A.
Sounds awesome. All right, everybody. The link to RJ's channel will be in the show notes, so it'll be nice and easy for you to find. You can also just search him on YouTube. It'll pop right up. It's real easy to find. So, all right, the last few questions of the podcast. Here we go. Number 1, what is your favorite Boss pedal?
This is going to be a weird answer. I have a modified EQ pedal.
Oh?
Yes.
Modified how?
So there's a company here in Nashville, XTS, that they make pedals, but they also do a lot of modifications. And they make a modified EQ pedal, 7-band EQ, that Tom Bukovac actually helped design, which is, the stock EQ, Boss EQ, is kind of like frequencies all the way from the lows to the highs. Well, this one's modified, so it only focuses 7 bands just on the mid-range.
Okay.
So it's more like just focused strictly on the mid-range frequencies. So I use that to kind of shape my tone. And there's multiple ways I can use it as a boost. I can use it almost like a range master boost, depending on how I tweak the sliders. But it's a really good way to kind of just liven up a sound. If if it's not feeling that great, you can pop that on either before or after your overdrive pedal, and it kind of livens it up. So it's kind of like, it's not a secret because obviously, Tom Bukovac's talked about it, and other people have, I think Tim Pierce has talked about it as well, but that's kind of just like a magic pedal that makes everything a lot better.
Nice. Very cool. I did not know that existed, so the more you know. I learned something every day on this show.
There you go.
All right, the final question. This is the one that gets people a little riled up and a little bit controversial. Families have split up over it. It's a big deal, but choose your answer carefully. So, what is your favorite kind of pizza?
So I'm lactose intolerant, so I don't eat a lot of regular pizza, although I will on occasion just suffer if I really want a pizza. I've got a couple favorite pizzas that I've had in the past. When I lived in LA, there was a place that we would get a pizza from that did this like fig and goat cheese chicken pizza that always blew my mind. It was like a fig jelly, goat cheese, and then it had like some chicken on it. And that, like, to this day was like one of my favorite pizzas because it was a little bit of savory and sweet and salty and all that stuff. As far as pineapple on pizza, I really don't mind pineapple on pizza as long as it's like, cut up small. Big chunks of pineapple, oh, forget about it. But the ratio has to be, correct. I think it's more about the ratio of toppings than the actual toppings.
I think that's probably pretty important, regardless of what style of pizza we're talking about. You got to get the ratios right. You got to have everything line up just perfectly if you're really going to have a top-notch pie.
Right. I think as far as a style, just basic New York style is my favorite. Even though I'm from Detroit and Detroit has their own style of pizza, between like Detroit pizza and Chicago and New York and whatever other styles of pizza, I think, you can't go wrong with a real New York slice.
Yeah, you really can't. I love New York style pizza. I'm a huge fan. I was a skeptic for a long time. I was like, it can't. Well, it looks like pizza. What do you mean? It looks like pizza. And then I went there and I had it, and my life was changed forever.
Yeah, to me, that's the type of pizza that's worth the lactose.
Right.
Chicago deep dish is not worth it to me. One piece is fine, but like I think it's more of a tourism thing. Chicago deep dish. I don't think real. Because I mean, I lived there for a couple years, and I don't think locals really eat Chicago deep dish pizza.
It always seemed like a calzone to me. Like it's a pizza cousin. It's definitely pizza related, but it's kind of its own thing. It's like a calzone or a stromboli or whatever. It's pizza-ish.
Yeah. But then you could say lasagna could be pizza-ish, so it's almost like a pizza lasagna or something.
Yeah, it's like a hybrid. I think that's pretty accurate. It sounds right to me. Hey, you're there in Nashville. 5 Points Pizza. I really love 5 Points.
Yes, in fact, that's probably the last real pizza I had was 5 Points. I think, of all the pizza places that I've eaten in town, that's probably my favorite. And I haven't eaten that a lot, but that's probably the one that was like, wow, this is really, really good.
Yeah, 5 Points is my favorite that I've had there. There's also one called Joey's. And
people have been talking about that. That's more like New York style, right? Like,
yeah, I think they're just the owners are straight from New York, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I went there one time. It's actually right by the String Joy shop. And so I was down there doing some electrical work. And I was like, what about Joey's? I heard that's good. And Scott was like, yeah, we got to go. We got to go get that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, everybody. This was a lot of fun, RJ. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. This was awesome.
Yes. Long overdue. Long overdue. All right, folks. For RJ, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. There you have it. There's another one for you. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Please make sure and check out RJ's channel. That link is in the show notes, or you can go to YouTube, type in his name, and it will come right up. I promise. He's got loads and loads of content. And again, he is a monster player. You're not going to want to miss it. And if you would like more of this chat and more content in general, and help keep this thing going and literally help keep the lights on, you can go to Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/tonemob, where for just $5 a month, you will get extra episodes to your ears every week. That's extra audio content right in the player you're listening to this on over at Patreon. So go to patreon.com/tonemob for that. That's also in the show notes. I know this is boring. There's always lots to talk about, but you can also help me out by checking out my music. My music is weird. My music sounds like it should be in a horror movie, and I've got an EP coming out really soon. And if you want to stay abreast with all that, you can follow me on Instagram at American Cyclops. That's the name of my musical project. I'm really excited to get all that out in the world here relatively soon, and I'm having a lot of fun getting in that creative groove and making scary sounds. They're definitely weird, definitely strangely structured, and I use a lot of pedals on it, so it's pretty out there. Again, you can follow on Instagram at American Cyclops. For all that, you can join along in the conversation around this show about gear, food, whatever else pops up in the Facebook group. You can go to The Tone Mob on Facebook. And, if you're going to bother being on Facebook, you might as well have a good time. That group is really solid. Everybody in there is really cool. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll let you get to another episode. But yeah, I hope you stay safe. I hope all is good. And, take your vitamin D. Do some push-ups. Stay healthy. And yeah, okay, I love you. Bye-bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.